I think we should start, sir. It's already time.
I'm all set.
Yeah,
आप
sure.
बताइए.
Thank you. Good morning, young ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar named Economics of Happiness. I'm sure we all want to be happy, but there's a lot of economics involved in it. So to give you a brief, I'm sure the details would follow. Economics of Happiness is a very multidisciplinary kind of a stuff involving a study of happiness, well-being, quality of life, satisfaction, and it has principles of economics, psychology, health, sociology. It's very much interdisciplinary. And we have with us today an expert on the subject, Dr. Prabhat Pankaj. He is the director of Jaipuria Institute of Management, Jaipur. And to give a brief introduction about Sir, Sir is a professor by profession, trained at Harvard, an economist by discipline, and a very able administrator and a happiness expert by choice. I'm sure you all know that Bhutan is one country that has been using an index of gross national happiness instead of GDP to measure its success. Sir has the privilege of staying, living, working in Bhutan for a huge period of time, and being there, he understands very well the Bhutanese principles of happiness, and that makes him a befitting and the finest resource to talk on it. So here, over to you, sir. There's one request to all the attendees. You can shoot your questions in the chat box towards the end, not during the session. You can start, your chat questions by something around 11:30 times, right? We'll take them, all of them in the end, and we would love to even write answers of them to you. So hold on to you. Welcome to a very exciting session, and over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So I would like to share the screen with all of you so that you can have a better idea, because I have a lot of visuals to show. So I'll be sharing the screen with all of you. I'm sure it is visible. Dr. Swati, is it visible?
Thank you, sir. Very much visible.
Okay. All right. So to begin with, it's a very unique theme, and there is always an excitement around this topic. This is one thing that everybody needs in equal proportion. Happiness is one thing that everybody would look forward to, but unfortunately, it is not available to everyone equally. And therefore, it is important that we talk about this subject. There has been some reason why this topic of happiness has actually become very important all over the world, and people have started giving a lot of attention to this. But earlier, if you look at the earlier days, not much was talked about this topic, because there was a sense of apathy, and the psychologist basically focused more on negative emotions rather than the positive emotions. So happiness falls in the category of positive emotions, and we would be talking about this. So it has got two dimensions. One is that what is the what is the idea of happiness as public policy, and how it is being followed by the country at different levels of administration, or managing schools on the basis of happiness agenda, or managing city on the basis of happiness agenda. So we'll look at this aspect. Another aspect is called the individual happiness. So happiness in your own individual life. This is very important, because all of you also must be looking forward to understand, is there any science behind happiness? Yes, there is a science behind happiness. So I propose to talk on both the aspects, though these two aspects actually form two different lectures altogether. But I'll be combining these two together for you, because it's a short talk, so I'll be going very briefly. So let me just first narrate to you a little bit of happiness story. the happiness story is about a person who wanted to understand who is the happiest person on this earth. So he thought probably the one with the maximum number of wealth must be happy. So, he approached a kind of, kingmaker, or maybe, big king. And he asked, my lord, you have all the wealth with you. Are you the happiest person? The king said, no, 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 I'm not the happiest person. You see, I have the wealth, but I don't have the health. So, health is important for happiness. So I'll be happy if I get good health as well. So he perhaps thought that the happiness lies in good health. So he went to the people with the best of health, like people who go to gym and they bodybuilding and things like that. Their health is perfect. So he asked these kind of people. He said, "Oh, you have the perfect health, so you must be the happiest." They said, "No, no, no, no. We are not the happiest. You see, we have the health, but we are lacking in our appearance. It would have been really good if you would be looking good, like any film star or some good-looking person." So they were craving for something else. So then this person thought that the happiness must, people who look very good and appreciated by others for their look and their face, they must be the happiest. So he approached people like who are film stars and others, and then asked, "Oh, you must be the happiest because you're the most adorable." They said, "No, no, 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 no. You got it completely wrong. We are not the happiest people." And therefore, he keeps on going. And the idea was that here is that happiness is something like a butterfly, uh, and more you chase, the more it eludes you. Uh, it's like a butterfly, right? So happiness is something you cannot just be certain that okay, is with me, is not with me. So happiness is not a place. So the first thing that we have to understand is that happiness is not a place. Happiness is a direction. It's not a place to arrive. So it's not like you have become happy after getting this. It's not like that. So happiness is a direction, it's a journey. It's not a place to reach. Uh, and about the butterfly chase, it's also been said that if you stop chasing the butterfly will quietly come and sit on your shoulder. So it's more true with the happiness, individual happiness that we see around. So the less you chase it, the more you get out of it. So let me give you some kind of perspective. First, let's move to this question. Two questions I'm raising. Why are happiness and well-being being given so much more attention by governments around the world? So I'm taking
Are you there, sir?
is my screen still shared because I got disconnected for
So
some
you
time?
need to share it again.
Share it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there is some fluctuation in my Wi-Fi. Anyway, so is it visible now?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. So these two questions I'm leaving with. So now moving forward, this is the World Happiness Report, and I'm giving you the glimpse of the World Happiness Report 2020, which is the latest one available, and you can access this World Happiness Report at this website www.worldhappiness.report. And if you go for the hashtag happiness 2020 or hashtag WHR 2020, you will get this report. So this report is published by it's called a UN report, and it's published by a group of people comprised of happiness experts and also policy matter experts. So I'm just giving you a glimpse of how they have ranked different countries on the basis of happiness. So if you look at the top 20 countries, the top on the table is Finland, and 20th is Belgium. So you can see all these kind of countries which are in the European side, the Nordic belt, the European countries, the US and others. So all these developed countries, you can see other top 20 countries, but how they actually measure it is on the basis of part of the happiness that is explained by GDP per capita, the part of the happiness explained by generosity, part of the happiness explained by social support, and the part of the happiness explained by perception of corruption, life, health, healthy life expectations, freedom to make life choices. So these are some of the factors that is taken into consideration, and then the happiness is deconstructed for these countries. How much of happiness is explained by GDP, how much is by generosity, how much is by social support. The for you is that these are the major sources of happiness that has been identified by world ranking of happiness. But you must be curious to know where our country stands on this ranking. So I have given this short for you. You can see 130 is Sri Lanka, the yellow one, 144 is India, and the last position out of 153 countries that has been taken for this report is Afghanistan. So out of 153 countries, the India ranks 144. It's quite low, and it's really surprising. You can debate on what is the methodology, how this happened. But one thing is very clear, that the basic parameters on which the happiness is measured across all countries, they are somewhere or the other not very well placed in our country. For example, the 4 of the 6 factors used by the report to explain a country's happiness are different aspects of the social environment. So, the happiness depends on the economic environment. It also depends on the social environment. And most of the factors actually for happiness comes from the social environment that you have to understand. And they include basically, as far as this report is concerned, they have taken someone to count on. That means, your trust, your social network. Do people have trust on you? Can you trust on somebody? That is a big source of happiness. Having a sense of freedom to make key life decisions. Are you dependent on somebody to take decisions, or are you free in making the choices? Do you make choices? Generosity and the trust. So these are all, these are the 4 major sources. And Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who is one of the architect of this report, he has actually underlined this, and to quote him, the World Happiness Report has proven to be an indispensable tool for policymakers looking to better understand what makes people happy. And time and again, we see the reasons for well-being include good social support networks, social trust, honest government, safe environment, and healthy lives. So these are some of the factors that goes to explain the happiness as far as this report is concerned. The report also looks at some other factors which are related to inequality, and it says that the inequality plays a very important role in person's happiness, and how good social environment can help to mitigate the effects of inequality. So it says that even if the economic disparity is there in the economy, but if the social trust and bonding is very high, that country's happiness will be slightly higher. And Professor Richard Laird, he's one of the celebrated author of happiness and international expert on happiness. He actually emphasized, he's also a partner in writing this report. He is emphasizing this particular point. And he says that this means that people are happier to live in societies without extreme disparity in quality of life. So he focuses more on quality of life. He says that people have the preference to live in a country where the disparity in quality of life is less. So inequality plays a very important role. So there are 3 things that we have to understand first on the basis of the studies that has been done. So the first point I'm making is that wealth is not enough for happiness. So that is the first thing that we have to understand. So this means that income alone cannot explain your happiness. So more and more nations are learning that economic growth alone is not enough to produce happiness. So the implication for the public policy is that if the wealth is not enough for happiness, then to what extent wealth is required for happiness. So that cutoff can be worked out. But for public policy, it is very important that to understand that yes, the GDP per se is not important, is not the only factor for happiness, is not enough for happiness. Second point that I would like you to understand is that happiness is measurable and accessible. So, so far we have not been able to give attention to happiness as public policy because we thought happiness is not measurable. But there is a lot of methodological development that has happened.
Guys, just hold on. Maybe that he's disconnected. We'll stay on the line. Yeah. You're back, sir.
Let me just
Yeah, you
again
need to share again.
Yeah. It's okay. So I was here. So the third point is that happiness can be promoted via public policy. So it is possible. So the point here is that we don't have to leave happiness at chance all the time. There are ways that you can understand and follow which can enhance happiness. So look at this picture. What has happened to income versus happiness? So the reported happiness over time in the United States have been taken from 1950, 2000 data, and it has been seen in all the three surveys. You can see three lines. It has either reduced or it has at best be stagnant. This means that the average income of the Americans have increased almost 3 to 4 times, but the average happiness in America since 1950, 2000 over a long period of time has remained almost stagnant. So this clearly shows that the happiness has a turning point in relations to the income, and income alone is not sufficient to bring about happiness for all time to come. And if you look at this plot, which is between the income and the happiness cross-country, plotting, you can see that there are many countries on the right, extreme right-hand side, where the high per capita income and high level of happiness is there. But in the middle, you can see, or in the bottom, the left bottom side countries, if you look at them, you'll see that the countries like Philippines or Colombia or Brazil, they have a fairly high level of happiness, but with a fairly low level of per capita income. But countries, it's not easy to understand how income is going to define your happiness. It will depend upon situation, the country to country, it will differ, individual to individual, it will differ. But one thing is for sure is that income is not the permanent source of happiness, or there is going to be a cutoff from where the income is not going to add to your happiness. And therefore, in public policy, what is said is that happiness actually lies beyond GDP. And this has been understood by many countries in the world. For example, the concept of GNH, if you look at gross national happiness, Bhutan is a country which is in our neighborhood, is in South Asia. It has given GNH precedence over GDP. And it is measuring its development based on gross national happiness rather than gross domestic product. Gross national happiness is a combination of 9 domain factors. You can see all these, and they are looking at psychological well-being, health, time use, education, cultural diversity, resilience, good governance, community vitality, how we live together, ecological diversity, that means how we take care of environment, and living standards, of course, is defined by the income. So therefore, income plus 8 more domains, including the psychological domain and social domain and spiritual domain, it's a most comprehensive index that is available with us today, how the country is measuring its progress based on happiness. So this is one area you can actually explore more. And I'm just giving you a framework to say which are the people considered unhappy and which are the people considered happy in a country like Bhutan based on the 9 domain. They have created a cutoff mark based on the statistical analysis of the data which they have collected. And the people who have sufficient domain sufficiency for more than half or above the cutoff are considered happy, and those who are below the cutoff are considered unhappy. So at any given point of time, the country is able to tell you how many people are fairly happy, how many people are extremely happy, and how many people are not so happy. And this actually channelizes their policy making. So any policy making like education, health, infrastructure, or any other policy, whether privatization should allowed, not allowed, everything they look at from the yardstick of how it is going to add to the happiness of the people, and whether the GNH is going to increase with this policy. So it's a very wonderful tool that is available all across the world. One example which you can take. There are several other examples I can present, like, Asian Development Bank has actually linked it with the Inclusive Green Growth Index. And then it found that the happiness and green growth index are quite close to each other, and they are perfectly correlated with each other. So over time, they found that the country which are able to preserve their environment and follow the sustainable development goals in a better way are also the country which has actually achieved fairly high level of happiness. So, the presumption with which we started as the social domains are important for happiness is proved here by the Asian Development Bank's study. There are other country study initiative you can look at. One is the OECD project, and it's talking about the measuring the progress of the society based on happiness. So it's doing a lot of quantitative work on how the progress of the society can be measured based on happiness. There are country initiative in Bhutan, I have already shared, Brazil, Thailand, UK, Australia, France, UAE. There are a lot of countries which have started following this, notion of happiness for their growth. The French president has commissioned 3 Nobel laureates, Joseph Stiglitz, Amartya Sen, and Fitosi. These are 3 Nobel laureates in economics. And they have actually suggested the ways how the alternative measures of development can be worked out. And happiness is one of the alternatives they found. And therefore, we have started talking about happiness at workplace, happiness, or we also started talking about happy city projects. So, to give you an example, if you move around in Dubai, this is the signboard you can see. It's called Happiness Street, just near, Burj Khalifa. So Dubai, why I'm quoting Dubai is because Dubai is one city which is developing itself on the basis of happiness. So you can see they are using this smart happy city. They don't call it smart city only based on technology, because technology wise Dubai is very advanced. And I can tell you that Dubai is going to be one of the city in the world, considering all major cities in the world, which is going to be the most advanced city in terms of technology. So they have already crossed a smart city. So the question they're asking is that what after a smart city? So they're saying it should be a smart happy city. So Dubai is actually called a smart happy city. And they are using this happiness meter to measure the efficacy of initiatives and projects that are indeed making people happy. So lots of data is collected, and the happiness meter is used, and every department there is a ministry of happiness over there. There is a minister of happiness over there. In every department there is a happiness meter installed. So the goal of the entire city management or the public policy is happiness. Is one living example you can see. People have also started talking about how happiness can be used in a school. So Delhi experiment, you must be aware about. The AAP government has actually initiated this happiness agenda in the school. There are many countries in the world which have actually gone to positive education. The basis of positive education is happiness. So you can see positive educations have been taken root in more than 20 nations, with hundreds of schools, thousands of educators, and it's everywhere. You can see in Adelaide, in Mexico, in UK, a lot of countries, more than 20 nations have adopted the concept of positive education, which is based on the happiness concept. Now let me come back to, because time is limited, I'll take another 10 minutes to talk about individual happiness. So we have the evidence from the neurological science, which says that when the happy face is shown in an MRI to the patient, to the person, the and the patch, the happiness patch is actually discovered on one side of the brain, and this patch actually, happiness patch actually started increasing the longer the duration the face was actually shown to the person. And when a defaced baby was shown to the same person in MRI scan, the patch actually appeared on the other side of the brain. So this means that brain has a particular space where the happiness is restored and happiness is recorded. And it is the neurological evidence that has been created for happiness. So this means that the happiness, can be measured, and it is possible to look at happiness from the individual psychology point of view. And this has resulted into lots of courses. You can see one of the course on happiness. Yale University is one of the most famous courses. It's the most subscribed course in Yale University. The happiness course was started in Harvard University. There are many Harvard professors who have done initially very good research on happiness. In Jaipuria also, we have launched a course called Happiness and Wellbeing. We offer it to the students as an elective, which you can take. And this course is designed to increase the happiness of the students and understand the happiness from the policy point of view. So what is the need of the hour? The need of the hour is that we focus, we understand happiness in its own entirety. So what are the unlocking factors for happiness? So there are 3 tips I'm going to give you in your own personal capacity to increase your capability to be happy, though there are hundreds of things I can talk about, but today I'm going to leave you with 3 things for you to ponder over. But before these tips, you must conform to the following 2 steps. So the first step is to appreciate the fact that there is a lot of nuances to this single word called happiness. So happiness cannot be measured in one single way. So there are many ways to look at happiness, so that you have to appreciate this fact. And therefore, any suggestion that is given to you about happiness will have a certain limitations. It will be based on certain assumptions. So you have to understand those. And happiness cannot be seen from a single lens. And the second is that it is to appreciate the fact that the happiness is a direction, not a place. So it's a constant improvement, and you can move towards the goal of happiness or increasing the happiness. You can feel happiness, but it's not a destination that you can arrive at. So I've already spoken about it. So what is the first thing that I would like to advocate based on the research? Based on the research, the first thing I'm going to advocate is that to practice the mindfulness. So here the question is that what is mindfulness? So people who have practiced mindfulness, they have actually been able to see, more happier waves in their brains. This is what the research says. Being mindful allows you to respond to the world rather than react to the world. So quite often, what happens is that our mind is agitated, and we keep on thinking thousands of possibilities, thousands of things. We don't have any answer about it. So when the brain was mapped for the people whose brain is actually thinking thousand things at a time, and the people who are actually more focused and thinking few single agenda or few couple of agenda, which they are very clear to follow, it was found that the happiness level of people who are actually focused is more than the people who are agitated. And therefore, we have to adopt the way of not to react to the situation, but to respond to the situation. There is a subtle difference when you respond to the situation and when you react to the situation. When you react, you become agitated. When you respond, you become very systematic, thought-provoking, and solution-oriented. And therefore, you look at this Harvard University professor's research paper, which says that wandering mind is not a happy mind. So he has taken the sample of a lot of people over a long period of time. You can read this interesting paper, which actually proves the fact that if you are focusing, or if you're practicing mindfulness, if you're focusing on few things more than thinking about thousands of things at one point of time, it actually tends to increase your happiness. So there is something called dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical that gets released in your brain, and we need a lot of dopamine detoxing. There are something called happiness hormones, happy hormones in our body. So dopamine is one of the happy hormones in our body. There are others also, like serotonin is a happy hormone. Oxytocin is also a happy hormone. But let's talk about dopamine, what it does. So you suppose you like too much of looking at mobile, too much of playing video, and even though it is not of much use to you, and you keep on doing the same thing, video all through the day, because of the fact that this is where you get your dopamine from. So dopamine is it increases your likeliness, likability of that particular thing, and it enhances your attachment to that particular thing. So the people who actually cannot live without mobile, looking at mobile, even though no message has come on your mobile, but you keep on looking at mobile. Oh, some message must have. So you're looking at some outcome which gives you dopamine. Any outcome which gives you dopamine, you're going to look at that. And how you form the habit is also because of the fact that particular activity gives you a lot of dopamine. That's why habit is formed. Say, for example, if you're too much into computer, too much into junk food, it's all because of the dopamine. It gives you a lot of dopamine in that. So the question is that the moment, if you're suppose too much into drug addiction or mobile use or video, and if you are asked to read the book, the moment you open the book and start reading, you don't get any dopamine out of it. And that's why you get very quickly, you get distracted, fatigued, and you're not able to change your habit. So the question is that here, you need to actually practice detoxing of the dopamine. And that's how you change your habit. So how the people can change their habit to create a fruitful, portfolio which can make you happy is practicing the mindfulness. And mindfulness is a way to detoxing and moving away from the excess dose of dopamine to a balanced dose of dopamine. So mindfulness is actually comprised of attention and the attitude. And you start focusing on the present moment through your mindfulness exercise. And in attitude, you develop the attitude of acceptance. So this is also called a stoic behavior. A stoic behavior is about the fact that, the things which are under your control, you focus on that. And the things which are not under your control, you don't spend too much of time discussing about it. And therefore, it creates a lovely balance for you, and you become more, keen to get a well spread of dopamine, and it helps you in not getting trapped with some kind of habit which is not going to be very useful to you for your happiness as well. The second point I would like to talk about is pursue active leisure. Leisure is a source of happiness, but not all leisure is a source of happiness. The research of happiness says that, it is the active leisure which is a source of happiness. So look at this research paper, the time use and happiness of millionaires, evidence from the Netherlands. So if you look at this paper, what it says is that it has done two kind of studies, study 1 and study 2. And in study 1, they have taken a millionaire, people who have a lot of wealth, a lot of money, and they started asking them about their happiness and how they spend their leisure. So it was found that their leisure is basically a very focused leisure. Say, for example, if they get time, they will play golf. If they get time, they will play guitar. And therefore, how you differentiate between a focused leisure and non-focused leisure is that focused leisure is that where you get your dopamine from. And the non-focused leisure is going to be like, watching television all through the day, becoming a couch potato, just eating and sleeping all through the day. That's what we do. And this research paper differentiated between a wealthy habit, habit of the wealthy people in terms of their leisure, and the habit of the not so wealthy people, like those who are poor, and their habit of leisure. And you see the difference in the quality of leisure time that they spend is the difference in how you get the happiness. And therefore, it says that the research suggests that your leisure time also has to be very focused. Say, for example, if you have leisure, and then if you have a habit or inclination of reading books, then you start reading a particular book, or creating something interesting, or painting. Painting is a very active leisure. So are you pursuing active leisure, or are you pursuing passive leisure? So that makes the difference between the happiness. So, you have to change the source of dopamine as far as your source of happiness is concerned. The last thing. The third one I'm talking about is be pro-sociality. Be pro-sociality is that, you have seen the report of happiness, which also talks about the fact that most of the happiness actually is derived from social factors and environmental factors rather than the monetary factor. Monetary factor is of course important, but there are more sources of happiness in social domain. And so is true in our day-to-day life. More of happiness actually comes from this pro-sociality behavior. And what are these? Act for the collective good. When you're talking about your personal good, that one thing, but when you're talking about collective good, it actually increases your sense of achievement, and it increases your accomplishment, and therefore, it makes you more happy. It is something called the social capital, and that's why we always emphasize on creating the social capital. Do you have a social capital of your own? Can you, when time is there, when you're required to get some suggestions, can you call somebody whom you can trust, and for the suggestion that he's going to give? Do you have someone like that? If you have, yes. If your answer is yes, that you have created some social capital for yourself. Networking is a good social capital. There are a lot of, it depends on how you pursue your agenda. Are you just confined to yourself, or are you actually taking people together? Or are you thinking about some larger goal than your own personal goal? So when you start focusing on the larger goal, then the small thing, distractor of your life, does not actually count so much in your life. So when you start digging for the gold, it's just like, I'm just giving you an example. If you start digging for the gold, you remove tons of dirt, and then what you get is a small piece of gold. So what is important at the end of the day is the small piece of gold you aspire for. Then don't worry about the ton of dirt that you have removed. So it actually doesn't matter. People at the end of the day is not going to ask you how much of dirt you have removed. People are going to ask you what gold you have got. And therefore, the larger goal will make you more mindful, more focused, and more happy. For the practical purposes, give a call to your life, to yourself. So I have developed this acronym. It's called CALL. CALL is like adopt the curious approach to life and living. So curious is C, approach is A, life is L, and living is L. So CALL, call. So that's why I'm saying give a call to yourself. Call means, develop something like, you are inquisitive, you want to learn something new, you're focused, you're mindful of the things that you are doing. Your purpose of life is defined. You have a larger goal in mind. You have lots of friends to fall back upon, and you trust them. And that is the oxytocin that you can develop for your happiness. So oxytocin is one of the happy hormones. And the picture that you can see is the brain mapping. And this is what happiness really looks like in your brain. So it's a very interesting figure you can see. This is the molecules of the protein myosin that drag a ball of endorphins along an active filament into the inner part of the brain's parietal cortex, which produces feelings of happiness, right? So, neurologically, I have already shown you the experiment that, happiness patch emerges in the brain, and it's a reality. And this picture actually captures how happiness looks like in your brain, right? So this is the last thing that I would like to talk about. Now, in the days of COVID, when we are at home and the psychological well-being, we are struggling with the psychological well-being, keeping our mind in balance, thinking positive and looking positive for the times to come for a solution. Here is, 30 days calendar for you. This calendar is actually developed by Action for Happiness. So it's an agency, international agency that works. You can type Action for Happiness .org, and you will get all this kind of information over there. So, it says that everything can be taken from us, but one thing, the freedom to choose our attitude at any given set of circumstances. You can see this quote over here. They say, people can take our circumstances or the nature or, God or anybody, can take anything from us, but not our attitude. Because attitude is something that is our choice. And when you actually work with your own attitude, you are doing some actions for happiness. So there is possible that, you have developed some kind of calendar which defines the actions for happiness. So if you're 30 days inside the home, here is 30 days agenda for you. And these are the actions for happiness. So I'm going to end over here. This is all I have to share. Let me look at the questions.
Thank you, sir. It was really exciting. And now the students can put their questions on the chat box. We can surely take up a few questions, and the rest we would respond on mail.
Sure. Have you opened the question chat box for them to write?
Yeah, yeah. We've opened it. They're doing their bit of
Dr.
writing.
Swati, this is one, they need to assimilate, understand a little more. They will have many questions later on as well. So I will suggest
Yeah.
that, we should allow them, and you can pass on that question to me and I will answer them separately.
Surely,
I can
surely.
also answer them separately.
Sure.
So let me, first question has come. Yes, Pravesh Sharma has written, to what extent can we influence our general happiness by the things we do? To a larger extent you can, or permanently you can. Happiness is also considered as a choice. When you start working on your dopamine detoxing, because everybody, most of us have that kind of excessive dependence of dopamine on certain sources, and that actually kills our slot. And therefore, suggestion is that the moment you start detoxing it gradually by changing your habit, happiness will start coming to you. So these three fundamental principles which I gave you are very powerful fundamental. Even if you are able to do one, is going to change a lot in your life. This is my experience.
There's yet another question, sir.
So
Yeah.
Pravesh is writing again,
Yeah.
if we know so much about happiness, why not use it to guide public policy? Yeah, of course, yes. But the problem is, acceptability of happiness as public policy at the government level is not yet come. So it will gradually come. I showed to you that how Bhutan has actually accepted become the forerunner. There are many countries in the world who have started using it. I gave you example of UAE, which is actually pursuing it. So probably a day will come when people will understand that this is the ultimate goal and people will accept it. But I'm very sure that this is a futuristic topic, and today or tomorrow, everybody has to talk about happiness.
The another question is from Suryakant Sharma Kumar, sir. Why
Yeah,
India is ranked so low in the World Happiness Report?
yeah. I mean, it is relative to the factors that is uh, considered for measuring the happiness. If you look at the report, so I gave you all those factors. So on those parameters, perhaps the sample that I was taken from India was not actually showing much, uh, you know, response on that, and probably that is the reason. So even Bhutan has accepted, let's say, happiness as public policy. But if you look at the ranking, international ranking of Bhutan, it's quite low. It's not very high. It's not in top 20. Right? So it is relative to the factors which is considered for measuring the happiness. And that's why I said in the beginning itself, two cautions. One, happiness is not a place, it's a direction. And happiness has got different nuances. So in a particular angle, if you look at happiness, you have to confine to that angle. You cannot mix two angles together. And that could be the reason. But yeah, a lot of this is not to say that India is a happy country. India has lots of issues. Obviously, on the social side, you look around your own setup, your own locality, your own society. Do you really think that the people are really happy, or they are really agitated, and always not sure about what is going to happen next? And there's a lot
Ayush,
of
yeah. How to deal with the constant breakdown done by the people we are surrounded with, even if we are happy, but many people near us are not ready to accept that. This is from Ayush Harsh.
yeah, very good observation, Ayush, and I can understand the deep sense of feeling that you are expressing with this question. Uh, the extreme negative emotions are the reality of today, and it's all because of our lifestyle, the way we look at our life, the way we interact with the environment, the way we put ourselves in the rat race. So there are a lot of factors, not so simple to answer your question, but it's a reality, I can say.
Yeah, Shijin says, how can we increase our happiness in the things that we do daily?
Yeah, this is possible. I gave you three indicators. Practice mindfulness. Do whatever you want to do in your life. Practice mindfulness. Live in present. Don't let your mind agitate too much. Uh, don't go enter into a reactionary mode. Go for a responsive mode. So there is always, certain things which are in your command. There are always certain things which are not in your command. Say, for example, COVID, how it has affected your life is not in your command. It's not something that you can control. But what you can do is that you can pacify yourself. You can think of tomorrow. You can build your capability today, and you can focus on what you are doing today and keep yourself safe from the problem. Right? This is what you can do. So focus more on these aspects and not get affected by the negative waves that is coming towards you. Oh, everything is gone and people are actually going to die and nothing will happen. Don't let that to happen to you.
So Prakhar has an interesting question. He says that banks have written off loan. How can it help them? It looks very relevant for you to answer it. Banks have written off loans, and how can it help them?
You want me to relate it to the happiness? Yeah, of course, when the debt burden is removed, people will be happy. Yeah, obviously debt is not something that people would be very happy about, and it is a burden. And anyone at any level, whether it is poor or rich, if debt is gone, that gives a plenty of happiness. So if the bank has taken this step, this must have increased the happiness of the people, no doubt on that.
Ashish questions, what parameters should be taken by India to reach at top position in the World Happiness Index?
Okay. So the first thing that India government has to do is to understand
Am I audible?
or accept the fact that happiness can be used in public policy. That is number one. Number two is that it has to start working at the grassroots level, subtly introduce the happiness models of managing different public policies. India cannot actually accept happiness as Bhutan has accepted as the ultimate goal of public policy, because it has lots of problem here. It's a big country. There is a lot of poverty in the country, and a poor people, talking happiness to a poor people who is not getting 1 square meal day will be a sin actually. So happiness, one of the best policy that India can adopt about happiness is to reduce the inequality first, and then look at the things of managing the things at different departmental level on the base of the parameters which enhances happiness. So I can give you one example. Let's say uh, managing a department based on real feedback mechanism, because people feel happy when they become part of when they're able to say something about something we managed over there. Say, for example, if one fine day you are on one fine day you are sitting in your room and you are in your home, and somebody knocks at your door, uh, and you open the door and you find that the city mayor is standing in front of your door, and you're really surprised to see the city mayor, and he's saying, we are planning to plant some trees nearby nearby area. Can you suggest whether we should go for mango or we should go for some other tree? And then you say, oh, mango will be really nice if you can plant it there. This is planting is always there. There is a budget. The mayor has to do that. It's a part of the job. But the moment he takes into cognizance the view of the citizens for whom the mango tree is being planted, the happiness quotient of the society increases. And that's exactly what you see Dubai is using this happiness meter for. There are lakhs of responses that they take about the public management, and they actually take care of those and try to see that the average feedback that they get from the citizen keeps on improving. No, so there are ways. There are many ways, but the only thing first we have to understand that it is important and it is required.
Yeah, we can take one last question and then we'll respond over mail. Sandeepan has to ask, can economic happiness and labor economics be linked?
Labor economics is about the supply and demand, understanding the supply and demand for labor at different wage level, how the labor in an open market economy offers themselves in the job market. And it takes the backward bending curve of this.
Are you there? I think sir has got disconnected, and you may put your questions on chat and we would love to respond over mail for those that we couldn't pick. Yes, sir. So you're back?
Yeah, I'm back. So,
sir, we've taken quite a few questions and quite a few remain pending. So we have asked the students to put them on the chat box and we would respond over mail.
okay.
Right?
Yeah,
because
and allow them also to ask questions later on. They can send in mail or something to you, and probably you can pass on these questions to me. I'll be very happy to answer them.
Sure. Thank you, sir, for the exciting session, and thanks to all the students for being a lovely audience. We look forward to your questions and we look forward to interact with you again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.